Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Actually, welcome to my basement with a ridiculous number of plushies, but I like it. Actually, I'm going to stand up real quick and make it even cooler. There we go. Ugh. I literally just finished getting my hair dyed, so I've been running around, but I think it looks cooler with the light off. Hello, Mars Rover. How are you tonight? It's almost Friday. I'm super excited. Okay, I think we are on, well, I know we're on our second live stream of book one for 1,000 Autumns. We kind of just had like an introduction last time to all the characters. That's... Ooh, we're looking forward to working on a cosplay this weekend. That's exciting. Hello, Annika. Welcome. So, which cosplay are you working on, Mars Rover? I'm curious. Oh, hang on. Just getting stuff settled. Hey, Chi Kiki. Welcome. How are you tonight? Okay. There we go. I don't know if I really have anything new to add for today. I got my hair colored literally about an hour ago. It will be very red one of these times you see me. It's still really wet, but all that. Hello, Truffle. How's everyone doing? So I know I asked Mars Rover already, but like, how's everyone doing? Anything exciting happening now or this weekend or just in general? Or just something that you're looking forward to? I mean, for me, the biggest thing I'm looking forward to this weekend is I've got another board game group going on, which is always fun. Convince a friend who... That's right! That's right! You're doing Krona and Maka. We talked about this. I remember now. No, that'll be super fun. Are you guys making the Screaming Sword and Soul? Oh, no worries, Truffle. For the last video, I actually placed a little marker just for you when you had to leave, so I can do that again for this one. I don't mind. You are going to be doing the weapons. That's so much fun. I loved how sassy Krona's sword was. He definitely was giving her so much sass. And I'm a sucker for a good scythe, obviously. I totally get it. I totally get how exciting making weapon props can be. I love it too. It really does sound so cool. I agree, Annika. Oh, warm. No, but yeah, I got some stuff going on this weekend for some of us. That's really cool. I can try that, yeah. I may not remember always, but I will try to timestamp things, yes. So we'll be starting chapter 6. Here, I'm going to write them down, at least for tonight's. Yeah, no worries, Truffle. All right, so we're going to be reading through chapter 10. And if you just remind me each time, my brain is like a goldfish. Speaking of, not sponsored. The only thing I own is my time and the physical copy of 1,000 Autumns that's right in front of me. So that's how it is. No, and then this is a chill stream. I know it's still early episodes in. But I will be talking to my chat, my lovely chat, and myself and the book. So if that's not really your thing, just maybe stick around, see if you like it. And if not, that's all good. No worries. My phone just reminded me that I have not turned off the volume on it, so I will do that now. But yes. Okay. I think we might just go ahead and get started a little early today. I'm going to blow my nose first. Oops. Oh, hey Peacock Pages, how you doing? You made it. We were just about to get started. Also, since you weren't here to hear it, I am going to try to remember to timestamp the chapters. So, yes, I'm excited that you made it. But I forgot. Okay, the fic recommendations. I knew I was forgetting something. Okay, so the ones for today that I did are for Scum Villain. I picked The Baby Trap by Crazy Pythor Fangirl. It might have been Python, but it could also be Pythor. What did I do? Clicked a button and things went everywhere. So I think you were probably able to guess the main premise for the story, but if not, it is Shen Qingchu acquires a baby and thinks, hey, this is a great way to make Yu Qingyuan's life more difficult. Everything gets better from there. The official summary is, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. Important things must be said 3 times. Baby trapping AU activated. So it is pretty funny. It's actually pretty wholesome too, which makes it even better. For the MDZS fic recommendation, I picked Family by Quiet Crash. I think it's been a little bit since I did a Wangxian time travel fic. Fix-It fic. So that's what this is. I read this a while ago, but remember enjoying it. So go ahead and give it a read too. There are some hard-hitting feeling moments and a lot of beautiful husband moments, but yeah. So the summary is, the truth of the matter was that when it came to taking care of people and their problems, both he and Wei Ying were of one mind. However, whereas Lan Wangji was taught to care for himself as much as other people, Wei Ying from early age was taught that him having needs was burdensome. He disregarded his own pain with frightening ease and offered up every part of himself for others to use with no reservation. Thus, Lan Wangji made sure that his husband's needs were never overlooked, his hurts never unaddressed. So it was that when they purified an ancient temple and its goddess benevolently offered them each a wish in return, Wei Ying asked for his family, for Jiang Cheng to never have lost his parents and his core, for Jiang Yanli to never have lost her husband and her own life because of him. Lan Zan asked for Wei Ying. So this is inspired by The Promises We Make by Paper Scarecrow, which is even more self-indulgent than the previous fill, and is still tired as fuck, but this time without even a valid reason. So I included a little bonus. I did not put in the link for The Promises We Make, but it's also a good read. That one I enjoyed quite a bit. It does, it's a little more serious, definitely more serious than the Baby Trap one, but it's a good, if it wasn't clear, I'm a time travel fix-it sucker. It's one of my favorites because people do so many interesting things with how they go about fixing things and what they find important. It's a really great character exploration when you do time travel fix-it, because you start thinking about, oh, hey, I saw this character this way, and maybe I can look at it this way. And I enjoy it. So I hope you do too. Not necessarily the time travel fix-it, like, period, but something that I recommend. Yes. So now that I'm done rambling, we can go ahead and get started. I see a pen over here because I dropped my other one and don't really want to go find it. So we will start today at pretty much 11 on the dot. So that is where we will start. Chapter 6 is 11. Okay. So last time She Qiao got kicked out of Huanyue Sect, I think it is, because he warned their enemy. Huan, I think, is the enemy sect. Pen problems, always either dropped or dry. That's so true, Truffle. But he gets kicked out and is basically like, yeah, I figured. I did give you trouble and I prevented you from completing the task the sect leader gave you. It's incredibly lenient of him to handle things this way. So, he also, She Qiao also asks, like, hey, can you tell me who I am and where I'm from so I know where to go? And basically, Yu Shengyan was indifferent. All things considered, there's no harm in telling you now. You used to be the sect leader of Xuandu's Violet Palace on Xuandu Mountain. During a fight with the Gok Turks' #1 martial artist, Huanyue, you fell from the mountain cliff. Shizun rescued you. However, I'd advise against rushing back there to look for kin. I haven't heard a word about anyone from Xuandu Mountain searching for you since the incident. Xuandu Mountain. She Qiao frowned, then muttered the name again, and a bewildered expression came over his face. Yu Shengyan sneered. Our Huanyue Sect, there it is, Huanyue Sect, may be demonic in the eyes of the world, but at least we're open and honest villains. We kill when we say we will, and we're never afraid to speak our minds. Unlike certain righteous sects who say one thing and do the opposite. Of course, it's up to you whether you take my word for it. If you end up dead, don't say I didn't warn you beforehand. She Qiao was silent. Early the next morning, the villa's servants woke him up and politely dismissed him from the building. He had nothing to call his own except a green bamboo cane. Forget copper coins, he didn't even have half a handful of food. Yu Shengyan was blatantly giving him zero leeway. Just as he intended, She Qiao was left to fend for himself. The dawn sun shone warmly down upon him, bringing with it the scent of spring. It wasn't unpleasant at all. She Qiao squinted a bit and raised a hand to shield his eyes. After gradual progress, he was now able to perceive light, though it only came through in blurred shapes, and his eyes stung and wept after looking for too long. It was still better than opening his eyes to see nothing but darkness. He turned back to look at the villa. Though Huanyue Sect never had good intentions, it was undeniable that they'd taken him in and given him medical treatment and care. This was a favor that couldn't be erased. If She Qiao met Yan Wushi in person one day, then he'd have to thank him. Alright, so that's where we left off before. We kind of had the characters being introduced, and a little of the background of what's going on, as well as the historical primer. So now we will officially start chapter 6. I know I started it 3 minutes ago, but chair's being funky. Chapter 6, Chen Gong. More than 200 years had passed since the people of Jin had migrated south, and the north was finally finding some stability after weathering the uprising of the 5 barbarians. The kingdoms of Qi and Shou were separated by a border. One lay to the east and the other to the west. Yeah, Annika, I agree. The Emperor of Qi, Gao Wei, was erratic and outlandish in his actions, and it was his negligence that had brought about northern Qi's decline and the spread of vagrants and refugees. Meanwhile, under Emperor Yuan Yang's rule, northern Zhou flourished even more with every passing day. Within its borders, life was stable and the people were prosperous. It was a fair distance between Funing country and Shou, and with many refugees also traveling along those roads. If one started on the journey with little preparation, they would soon truly understand what it was like for both heaven and earth to ignore their pleas. A drought had taken hold in northern Qi the year before. Even when winter came, there had been very little snow. And so the famine continued into the current year, and refugees could be seen walking the entire distance from Yicheng to the Chen border. Rumor was that in some places, starving people had even begun eating others' children. So, refers to what some starving parents on the brink of death did when they couldn't bear to eat their own children. They exchanged their own children for another unrelated child, then cooked and ate that one instead. Which, I mean, that's horrible and probably true, and kind of counterproductive because you really think that they're not going to eat your child. I'm just saying, it's a horrible thing, but oh, you have no idea how jarring that was to run across first. Yeah, Thousand Autumns has 3 different that guys. The good one thing about Chen Gong is he's the least creepy of the lot. That's true. Yeah, I agree with the that guy though. That's all I'll say on it. If he somehow found himself in the company of cannibals, he'd almost certainly end up on the dinner menu. Funing country was closer to Yicheng in the north, and although they'd had little rain there either, they hadn't suffered any great disaster, so the area was comparatively more stable. The country was also large, and since the temple festival had begun, the town was lively and bustling as many people came and went. Qi and Shou were northern countries, and during the North's early years, Xianbei customs had prevailed. But as time went on, Han influence gradually overtook and took hold, and now even their clothes and jewelry mostly embodied Han refinement with Xianbei touch. The upper-class nobles pursued elegance and splendor, wearing long trailing ribbons and tinkling bells of jade. Their aspirations shaped the trends for all folks, so every rich family without exception wore full-length gowns, and there were also hats and flowing skirts in the northern fashions. With such a myriad of styles, the scenery in the Funing country town transformed it into a little capital during the temple festival. The temple festival was being held at the newer Duke Jiang's temple, where, of course, the one they worshipped was the Grand Duke Jiang Shang. The original Duke Jiang's temple was located on the south side of town. It was said to have been built during the Han Dynasty, but later damaged by war and then abandoned completely. Now only a dilapidated shell was left, and even the statue of Duke Jiang had gone missing. And so the empty, ramshackle temple became a shelter for beggars and paupers. So the initial Jiang Shang refers to Jiang Jia, a Chinese noble and prime minister who lived during the 11th century BCE, sometimes considered a Taoist immortal. So that's a fun little historical fact. Recently, a new resident had moved in, and his name was Chen Gong. During the day, he worked at the town's granary as a seasonal laborer, loading and unloading rice from carts, doing only heavy work. As his pay was meager, he couldn't bear to spend it on rent, so when night fell, he returned to the broken-down temple. He was quite content with his arrangement, but there were 2 beggars living at the temple too, so he couldn't make it his permanent residence. Duke Jing comes up in Sha Po Long too. Yeah. He had to keep his money on him at all times, and even needed to watch his food to keep them from pilfering it when he wasn't paying attention. When he returned on this particular evening, he immediately noticed that there was an extra person in the broken-down temple. A man in grayish-white robe was grayish-white robe was sitting there. The first thing Chen Gong did was frown involuntarily. The temple wasn't roomy to begin with. Adding another person was like snatching away another piece of his territory. Then he noticed that the other man was holding a paper packet in his hand and slowly eating from it, bite by bite, with his head lowered. The aroma fanned out from the paper packet. It was the aroma of a donkey meat sandwich. He recognized the smell immediately. Chen Gong had eaten one a couple of times when his father was still alive. But after his father's death, his stepmother had teamed up with her own children and chased him out of the house. He earned so few coppers from hauling rice every day that he yearned to break them into more coins to use. Where would the chance to taste a donkey meat sandwich even come from? The aroma stirred up his long-forgotten memories. Chen Gong couldn't help but gulp down a mouthful of saliva. With a second look, he noticed that next to the man was another bulging paper packet. That meant that there was still another donkey meat sandwich. It wasn't only Chen Gong who'd noticed. The other 2 beggars had too, and one of them was already yelling, "Hey, if you want to stay here, you gotta ask us first. The temple is small and it can't hold that many people. Hurry up, get out of here." Chen Gong knew that they were deliberately picking a fight. He made no sound, just walked up to the spot where he usually stayed and sat down, gathering up some straw. He kept his ears pricked, and he kept that donkey meat sandwich fixed in his sight, out of the corner of his eye. "I have nowhere else to go either," said the dark-robed man in a gentle voice. "I saw that there was still room here, so I wanted to come in and rest for a while. If this brother is willing to accommodate me, then I will be deeply grateful." The beggar said, "If you want to rest and stay, fine by me. Just hand over everything you've got on you." Chen Gong sneered with mild disdain. "I don't want your things. As long as you pay me with food, I'm willing to fend off those 2 for you." The beggar said angrily, "Chen Da Long, we weren't even talking to you, so why are you running your mouth?" Chen Gong was only 16, not very old at all. I don't know where he got tall. Oh, he wasn't tall or strong, but his youth lent him flexibility and great endurance, and he was ruthless to the bone. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have been able to lay stake to the largest patch of territory when he'd moved into the temple after the beggars. "What, so you're allowed to talk, but not me?" Chen Gong said lazily. They were beggars, yes, but in this town, all the beggars banded together and shared information. Since there were 2 of them, they figured they needn't be afraid of Chen Gong. So for the Chen Da Lang, literally eldest son, which is used here as a suffix. The beggar didn't pay Chen Gong any further heed. Instead, he got up and grabbed for the donkey meat sandwich from next to the man in gray. Cut the crap! Hand over everything you've got! You want to enter this here temple gate? Well, I'm your Grandpa Lai, and I call the shots. But before his hand could touch the food, someone grabbed his wrist. The beggar was furious. Chen Dalang, why don't you mind your own business? You even got an issue with me eating something? With his other hand, Chen Gong snatched up the donkey meat sandwich. I want to eat too. Why didn't you ask me? As he spoke, he unwrapped the packet and took a bite. I've already had some. You want the rest? He asked gleefully. The beggar threw himself at Chen Gong, trying to hit him. Chen Gong quickly stuffed the packet into his lapel, and then two of them fell into a heap, brawling. The other beggar, who'd stood off to the side, joined in as well, and the fight grew from 2 people to 3. Compared to the other two, Chen Gong wasn't as strong, nor was he as tall. But the secret to his victories was that he fought without any regard for his own life. He was unflinchingly vicious. Keep that in mind. After kicking one of the beggars hard in the stomach, Chen Gong dusted off his hands. With his hands on his hip, he spat. I put up with you guys for long enough. You were always messing with me just because you were here first. You even spat on my food in secret when I first got here. Don't think I didn't see. You still want to fight? Bring it on. I've got nothing anyway. I've got nothing to lose but my life. If you've got the guts, then bring it. It was exactly this viciousness of his that terrified the beggar. Hearing Chen Gong's challenge, he looked down at his partner, who still lay flat on the ground, unable to get up. He chickened out immediately. Clutching at his middle, he turned and ran. When his partner saw him go, he didn't dare keep fighting either. He crawled to his feet, still holding his stomach and making noises of pain, then snarled, "Just wait, you little brat." With those last words, he hobbled out of the temple. Chen Gong fished the half-eaten donkey meat sandwich out from his lapel and took another bite. Satisfied, he said. Not bad. Did you buy it from the Li family in the south of town? The meat is chewy and it's still hot. It's going to burn my throat. He felt like the brawl was worth it just for this bite of donkey meat. He'd been thinking those two were eyesores for a while now anyway, and after seizing this opportunity, he'd have the place all to himself in the future. That was great. When the man in gray made no reply, he added, "Hey, I'm asking you a question. What, you mute?" The other man looked up. "You chased them off. Aren't you afraid they'll come back for revenge?" Only then did Chen Gong realize that something seemed wrong with the man's eyes. His gaze was dull, and even though he was looking at Chen Gong's direction, he didn't seem to be looking at him. Once Chen Gong took in the bamboo cane at the man's side, he understood. This wasn't a mute, but a blind man. He clicked his tongue in disdain. Afraid? I've never been afraid. What can those losers do? Chen Gong looked at the man in gray up and down. He was dressed in coarse clothes from head to toe, and neither the style nor material was anything special. The only noteworthy thing was his face. Bluntly speaking, he didn't look much like another homeless person like Chen Gong, but more like a wandering scholar. "What's your name?" Chen Gong asked. "You don't look like someone who's in trouble. What are you doing in a place like this? Even rats don't want to nest here." The man in gray nodded in his direction and smiled. "My name is She Qiao. I fell ill and was without any money. This was the only place I could find to stay for a few days. Once I've earned a little money for the journey, I'll return home. Thank you for helping me drive away the other two. How should I address you?" There had been both truth and lies in Yu Shengyan's words, so he wasn't completely trustworthy. But in the end, She Qiao had no place to go other than Xuandu Mountain. After giving it some thought, he finally decided to head there first. Xuandu Mountain was located on the border between northern Xiao and southern Chen. There were two ways to get there. The first was to travel southwards all the way from Funing country until one crossed into Chen, then to bear northeast, which was a rather indirect route. The other way was to head directly south from this place, which was a comparatively shorter distance and somewhat more convenient. She Qiao chose the latter way. Even though the world around it was in chaos, Funing country had been spared from disaster and was still peaceful and prosperous. A singular piece of pure land in the turbulent world. And what She Qiao said was true. He was penniless, and this was the best place to rectify that situation. His eyesight was recovering very slowly, but he definitely made some progress. In the daytime, with enough light, he could see some vague and blurry outlines. That was much better than when he had just woken up and couldn't even see his hand when he held it before his face. Chen Gong sat down. Anything's fine. My name is Chen Gong, so you can just call me Chen Da Lang. I ate one of your donkey meat sandwiches earlier, so let's say that's your rent for today. But I also helped you chase off those two guys. When we add that on to the cost of tomorrow's stay, When we add that on to the cost of tomorrow's stay, you're gonna have to pay me 3 donkey meat sandwiches tomorrow. She Qiao smiled. Very well. When he saw him agree so readily, Chen Gong became suspicious. What are you going to buy donkey meat sandwiches with? Didn't you say you have no money? Then I'll simply earn more. You? I've heard of scholars being bookkeepers and accountants, but you can't even see, Chen Gong said, full of ridicule. How could you do bookkeeping? Don't tell me you're going to haul rice too. I'm telling you, 3 donkey meat sandwiches, not one less. Don't think you can weasel out of it. You can ask around about me. I, Chen Dalang, might have nothing else, but even ghouls are scared of fighting me. Didn't you see those 2 losers just now? If you can't bring me 3 sandwiches tomorrow, you can sleep outside and eat air for dinner. She Qiao was good-natured. He didn't get angry when Chen Gong used such a tone with him. He even smiled and agreed. Although the ramshackle temple was very broken down, leaking from all sides, and without even an undamaged window, its redeeming feature was that there were many pillars supporting the altar which could be used to shelter from the wind. Chen Gong had also brought in some straw stacks and firewood. He used the straw as a blanket to keep out the drafts and burned the wood for warmth. Of course, these had only been for himself. But now that She Qiao was willing to bring offerings to the temple, Chen Gong reluctantly shared some straw and wood with him. Then he saw that She Qiao was actually well prepared. Inside his bag was a thick old garment that he used as a blanket. At this, Chen Gong couldn't help but give a cold snort. The 2 beggars didn't return. They'd probably found some new shelter. Chen Gong brazenly claimed the clothes they'd used as blankets for himself, but when he caught a whiff of the sour odor on them, he curled his lip and threw them away, then moved himself closer to the fire. I love the fact that even as a beggar, he's like, no, I have higher standards. So, how badly must those clothes have smelled? For him to actually be like, you know what? No, I'm good. Hang on. There we go. I just noticed it was rather high. Okay. There we go. I mean, you could always wash them. I feel like even if it was not great clothing, it's better than straw. Or why not both? But that's just me. His original plan was to snatch She Qiao's garment for himself as well, but on second thought he could just wait to strike until the other man ran out of offerings. With this thought in mind, he inadvertently fell right to sleep. Early the next morning, Chen Gong got up and prepared to go to work at the granary, as usual. He looked around. She Qiao had vanished, leaving only a pile of straw that still held his imprint and a heap of dark ash, what was left of his firewood. Chen Gong didn't think much of it and headed off to the granary. He didn't believe for a moment that She Qiao would really return with 3 sandwiches that day. After all, if the guy had any money to spare, he wouldn't need to stay in a broken-down temple that even ghosts steered clear of. Not to mention that he was both feeble and blind. What was he going to do to earn the money? Don't you dare return empty-handed. I'll beat you up so badly even your mother won't recognize you. Sure you will. That evening, Chen Gong walked towards the broken-down temple, all the while silently mulling that over. Before he even stepped through the door, he smelled a familiar aroma. The sound of his footsteps seemed to draw She Qiao's attention. The man raised his head and smiled in Chen Gong's direction. You've returned. Donkey meat. Chen Gong only got out those 2 words, a stern look on his face, when he stopped short. For then he saw 3 paper packets stuffed with donkey meat sandwiches neatly placed upon the straw where he slept. Okay. So that's the end of chapter 6. So, say 36, 15. All right, I'm going to take a quick sip. Okay. Chapter 7. The weakling who wasn't weak. Then he said, Did you bring these? She Qiao nodded. Didn't you ask me to return with 3 donkey meat sandwiches? Chen Gong noticed that She Qiao had changed into a new green robe. The gray robe he'd worn before was beneath him, being used as... Perhaps he'd managed to find some place to take a bath. Where did you get the money from? Chen Gong asked suspiciously. She Qiao smiled. I did it the ethical way, of course. Look at me. Do I look like I could steal something? Chen Gong humphed. Who knows? That said, he still picked up a sandwich. It was warm and soft to the touch, clearly fresh off the stove. He opened the paper packet and took a bite. The sandwich was baked golden brown, and when he bit into the crust, juices gushed out and a smoky, rich aroma filled the air. Chen Gong's gluttony flared up, and he ate 2 in one go. He couldn't bear to eat the final one, though, and after thinking about it, decided to leave it for tomorrow's breakfast. He could have it right before going to work. He turned his head to look at She Qiao, who was still sitting there cross-legged with his bamboo cane on his arms. His eyes were gently closed, and Chen Gong couldn't tell if he was resting or thinking. Hey, he said, where are you from? She Qiao shook his head. I don't know. I fell while on the road and knocked my head, so I forgot many things. If you don't want to say, just don't. What kind of excuse is that? You think I'm a real sucker, do you? Displeased, Chen Gong lost all interest in chatting and lay right down. But then, perhaps because he'd overstuffed himself, no matter how he tossed and turned, he couldn't fall asleep. So Chen Gong had nothing else to do but try talking again. Hey, what exactly were you doing all day? How'd you earn that money? A soft voice came from the other side of the temple. Reading palms and telling fortunes. You know how to read fortunes? Chen Gong sat up and faced him. She Qiao was still sitting in place, cross-legged. Honestly, it doesn't involve much reading, he said with a smile. But a person's palm will always give away small traces of whether they are poor or rich. It's just a trifling skill to earn a little money. Chen Gong perked up. Then can you see if riches and glory are in my fate as well? Let me feel your hand. Chen Gong extended his hand to him, and She Qiao stroked them for a while. You're used to carrying heavy loads on a daily basis, so you must be working seasonally at a granary or at the docks, correct? What else? Chen Gong wasn't stupid. He knew that She Qiao must have drawn his conclusion from the thick calluses that covered his hands. You're stubborn, tough, and defiant in disposition, as well as a bit distrustful. You must have fallen out with your family when you were small, and you probably have a stepmother or a stepfather. Chen Gong couldn't help but stare, wide-eyed. What else? She Qiao smiled. With the world in turmoil these days, there's one thing you can do. With your character, if you join the army, there's a chance you'll be able to really make something of yourself. How'd you manage to see all this? Your accent is local, so you couldn't possibly be a refugee from afar. But local citizens usually have a house, unless something went wrong with their family. Given your personality, chances are it's like I said, that you fell out with yours. But even if you had fallen out, if your father and mother were around, they wouldn't have just sat back while you ended up outside in the rain and wind. So either your father must have married a severe stepmother, or both your parents passed away early. He laid out his reasoning step by step, and Chen Gong was finally mostly convinced. Oh, well, then how do you know I would be successful if I joined the army? You don't want to live beneath your stepmother's temper, so you left home in such a fury you would rather stay out here. Last night you fought those beggars over donkey meat sandwiches. Therefore, I can tell that you're a person who's ruthless to both yourself and to others. If that's the case, you'd be well suited to a military environment. Chen Gong snorted coldly. So basically you just look down on people like me who can't manage a full meal and needs to steal your stuff. All this beating around the bush, but it turns out you're just making fun of me. No, he's giving you legitimately good advice. But what could you do? Chen Qiao smiled. Who am I to look down on you when I'm in such a sorry state myself? Didn't you just ask me to demonstrate how I read palms and tell futures? Fortunes, not futures. I only used you as an example to explain. And I was quite correct, wasn't I? I can't make a lot of money this way, but it's still enough for a meal. If you're such a smooth talker, acting like you know everything, how come you're still so down and out? Did you get robbed by bandits on the road? Possibly. I don't remember myself. Sometimes my mind is clear, and sometimes it isn't. Many things are fuzzy and vague. Luckily, you were willing to let me stay here, otherwise I really don't know where I would have spent the last 2 nights. I should owe you my thanks. Having been duly praised, Chen Gong became much more at ease. He even felt like it was right and proper for She Qiao to give him those 3 donkey meat sandwiches, as if Chen Gong really had personally protected him. We already see where some of the behavioral issues for Mr. Chen Gong come into play. That's all I will say right now about it to not spoil things. So, it's still 3 sandwiches tomorrow. Don't think that you can worm your way out of it by talking my ear off. All right. The next evening, when Chen Gong returned to the ramshackle temple, there were 3 donkey meat sandwiches placed upon his spot once again, just like the night before. On the other side of the room, She Qiao held another in his hand and was eating away, slow and methodical, as if it weren't a donkey meat sandwich, but some kind of exotic, high-class delicacy. What a poser! Chen Gong snorted again, then turned his head and opened the paper wrapper before taking a vicious bite. And when Chen Gong returned the evening after that, 3 more donkey meat sandwiches were there again, just like before. He didn't bother with courtesies, just picked one up and ate it straight away. Even though She Qiao was quick Even though Shen Qiao was mild-tempered and quick to respond to his questions, Chen Gong always felt that they were too different from each other, and words never made things better. He had difficulty understanding the things Shen Qiao said, and Shen Qiao seemed immune to Chen Gong's attempts to be fierce and intimidating. It was like landing a punch in cotton. Even though he clearly held the upper hand, he was the one who ended up stifled. His intuition told him that Shen Qiao was someone remarkable, not just because of the unfailingly pristine robes, but which lent him a scholar's refined frailty, but also because there was the sense of something indiscernible and unfathomable about him. Even though they were both sheltering in the same ramshackle temple, Chen Gong still felt like he was one level beneath the guy. Chen Gong didn't like that feeling, so he didn't like Shen Qiao either. Wind leaked in through all the temple walls, so the nights were freezing. There were probably far more rats than humans in residence. His shoes were torn, and it felt like something was nibbling on his toes. Chen Gong yelped in pain, but was loath to get up and seek revenge on a rat, so he simply curled up tighter instead. Amid the howling wind, it seemed the sound of footsteps drew near from outside. But who'd come to this shithole in the middle of such a hellish wind? Chen Gong was about to doze off when he heard Shen Qiao say, "Someone's coming in." He opened his eyes and saw several skulking silhouettes slip inside, bludgeons held in their hands. The two in front seemed terribly familiar. With a proper look, he recognized them as the two beggars he'd driven away the other night. Here comes karma. Chen Gong jolted up, awake in an instant. He quickly got to his feet. "The hell are you doing?" One of them laughed and said, Chen Da Long. Weren't you full of bravado just the other day? You even drove us out of here. But we've called on our brothers from the town's beggars' guild today. Let's see you cop an attitude now." Chen Gong spat at them. "What beggars' guild? You're just a bunch of beggars fooling around. How is that a guild? Still talking smack when your end is near?" The other man replied angrily. "Don't go pleading for mercy later. Brothers, this is the bastard who stole our territory. Oh, there's also a new guy. He's got money on him. We'll take them both down. With all the stuff we get off them, we'll buy a round of drinks." Anyone could tell at a glance that Chen Gong was destitute. Even if he did have money on him, at most it would buy a few buns. But this other man was different. His clothes were clean and tidy. Even if all they did was yank those robes off, surely they could sell them for a couple dozen copper coins. 5 or 6 figures lunged at Chen Gong all at once. Despite his power and ruthlessness, in the end he was only a teenage boy, and he was nowhere near solid or sturdy. The other side's strength and overwhelming numbers had him down and beat in just a few moments, with a mass of vicious blows to his face and body. They weren't after his life, but they weren't holding back either. The corner of Chen Gong's mouth was split open. All he could do was try to shield his vital areas from getting kicked. The beggars searched Chen Gong over, but their final haul was only 30 copper coins. One of them spat and said, "What bad luck, we got ourselves a bum. Lai Da, didn't you say he'd have at least 50 coppers? Lai Da smiled apologetically. Maybe he's spent it all. Anyway, there's still another one over there. All right, I'm going to pause for a sec. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm stuttering a lot tonight, which I feel must be really distracting. So, sorry. I'm going to try to read better, but let's continue. The crowd turned their attention to Shen Qiao and saw that he'd been sitting quietly the entire time, as if he'd been scared stupid. He held the bamboo cane tucked in his arms and remained unmoving. Oh, well, thank you, Annika. One man wondered, why does it look like there's something wrong with his eyes? He blind? Confident in their greater numbers, Lai Da yelled, "Hey, hand over all the money you've got and us grandpas will spare you a beating. You hear me?" Oh, I can reset it if you want. I'll give it a quick reset. We'll see if that helps the roboticness. All right, be right back. All right, so hopefully that'll help, Truffle. It says it's got an excellent connection, so I'm not sure why it's been doing that. Maybe it's just my voice cracking. Hey, hand over all the money you've got and us grandpas will spare you a beating. You hear me? So I'm going to explain. So when someone calls himself a grandpa or like, I'm your father, so they're basically saying like, I'm the boss. So when they say I'm your grandpa, it's them basically being like, hey, we're in charge. She Qiao shook his head. Pulling rank. There you go, Truffle. She Qiao shook his head. I worked hard to earn the money I have, so I can't give it to you. Lai Da sneered. Oh ho. Quite the spine you've got. That's fine then. Hold on to it. 2 days ago, you wouldn't even give up a single donkey meat sandwich. Today, us grandpas want you bloody and penniless. Several people lunged at him, intent on doing to She Qiao exactly what they'd done to Chenggong. Yeah. I've seen scenes or read scenes where someone's like, you're gonna call me daddy. And it's not in a sexual way. It's like, when I'm done beating your ass, you're gonna call me daddy. 'Cause I just kicked your ass and now I'm in charge. Which always makes for a hilarious scene. Or like when someone calls someone like brother, like big brother. Sometimes they'll do that. Oh, you only got the notice now? Oh, that's okay. We met Cheng Gong, who's a angry 16-year-old beggar that's staying in this dilapidated shrine, and kind of coercing She Qiao into giving him 3 donkey meat sandwiches to stay there per night. And now, because he kicked out 2 other beggars, they're in a fight with the beggar gang. The beggar gang came and kicked Cheng Gong's butt, and now they're trying to... Yep, donkey meat sandwich guy. Yeah, that guy. In this case, a general got a military inspector to tell 2 Dutch guys the inspector was their grandfather in Dutch. That's hilarious. That's really funny. But yeah, so now basically they've moved on to She Qiao, and they're like, all right, hand over everything you've got or else we're going to beat you up. And he's like, no, I earned that money. It's mine. I need it. They're like, all right, we're going to make you call us grandpa, and we want you bloody and penniless. So that's exactly where we are now. Several people lunged at him, intent on doing to She Qiao exactly what they'd done to Chenggong. They'd underestimated this frail and feeble scholar from the start. Lai Da moved the fastest. One fist was already hurtling towards She Qiao's face, his other hand moving to grab his lapel. Judging from their positions, the fist should have hit its target, forcing the other man to topple over backwards, giving Lai Da the perfect chance to pounce atop him. But suddenly, pain speared through his wrist. It's even funnier because this is complete nonsense in Dutch, but the 2 merchants in question had lived in China so long they understood the insult. That makes it even better. A yelp escaped Lai Da. Before he understood what was going on, something else struck him in the waist, forcing him to fall to the side and knocking over his nearby companion. The 2 of them landed in a heap. There was no candlelight within the broken-down temple, and it was a windy night that kept the moon half hidden as clouds scuttled past overhead. No one had gotten a clear view of why exactly Lai Da fell, so none of them stopped coming. They lunged at She Qiao. But then came the sound of several thwacks, and a couple more people dropped to the ground. "What kind of sorcery are you using?" Lai Da was undeterred. While he yelled, he heaved himself upright and lunged at his opponent again. Shen Qiao's vision had been slow to recover. At night, when the light was dim, he could only see a blurred mass of shadows. The moment his attention slipped, Lai Da pushed him down and punched him square in the chest, forcing him to suck in a painful gasp of cold air. Yeah, it was a great comic, and I hope the novel be translated into English or that someday it'd be a live action. It sounds like a great one. I'm going to have to keep A Moonlight Spring River on my list. I'm going to write it down, actually. Moonlight Spring River. Okay, adding that to the list. After a successful strike, Lai Da moved to grab Shen Qiao's cane from his hands. But then a point on his wrist went numb, and the cane came thrusting towards him. It wasn't particularly fast, yet as Lai Da reached for the cane, he failed to grasp it and instead was jabbed viciously in the nose. Ooh. Just like we were talking about last week, go for the nose. He screamed in pain. Unable to think about anything else, he clutched at his nose and fell to the side, blood trickling out between his fingers. This development took everyone by surprise. Chen Gong was completely frozen, watching as Shen Qiao struck here and there with his bamboo cane. Though there seemed no rhyme or reason to his strikes, the beggars couldn't get anywhere near him. Instead, they were promptly sent sprawling all over the place, wailing as they landed on the ground. "I'm going easy on you now," said Shen Qiao, "and yet you still won't leave? Do you want me to stab out your eyes and turn you blind like me?" So, here he is, looking all sexy and badass. There's Chen Gong and the beggars. Right? He really does look so serene. I do like how they made sure to draw him squinting. Like, that is a nice detail. His voice was soft, unnerving, mingling with the wind like a ghost. I do like the art. I love the style that most danmei have. Like, I know there's a couple occasional ones where, like, it's different, kind of like our Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish, or My Husband and I Sleep in a Coffin. Like, those are different, but, like, a lot of them are, like, this style. Like, this pretty style. And they're just, like, this pretty boy. Or a man, in the case of Yan Wushi. But yes. Of course, Lai Da and his friends dared not stay. Straight away, they scrambled to their feet and fled. This time, they didn't even bother with some parting trash talk, just beat an immediate retreat as if they might wet their pants in terror. "You should have just stabbed them blind," Chen Gong said hatefully. "What's the point of holding back with people like that?" "Why didn't you do it, Chen Gong? You got a comment? You do it." Shen Qiao leaned on his bamboo cane and didn't reply. The rise and fall of his shoulders was noticeable, as if he was panting slightly. Only then did Chen Gong come around and realize if Shen Qiao could beat off all those beggars, then taking on Chen Gong himself would be a snap. Plus, he'd yelled and squawked at Shen Qiao before. Luckily for him, Shen Qiao hadn't taken offense otherwise. A little frightened, his tone turned polite. Hey, Shen Qiao, Shen Langjun, Shen Qianbei. Just as Chen Gong spoke, the other man suddenly slid down the pillar behind him and fell limply to the ground. Chen Gong could only stare. So Qianbei, if you didn't know, is a respectful title or suffix for someone older or more experienced in a particular discipline. Okay. All right. So we're about to start chapter 8, and I'm going to put 1 hour and 1 minute, because that is about where it's at. All right. Chapter 8, Journeying Together. When Shen Qiao came to, he saw old beams slatted above his head, decaying with age, looking almost in danger of crashing down at any moment. Someone at his side was shaking his shoulder. At first, he didn't realize where he was and absently muttered, "Shitty, don't fuss." Sheedy. Not shitty, sheedy. I'm going to have to make sure I pronounce that with emphasis. Sheedy. Who you calling your sheedy? Chen Gong was in a bad mood. You slept for 2 days and 2 nights. I used all the money I had on me, and it still wasn't enough, so I took yours for now, but that's only enough for 3 days. If we can't pay tomorrow, we'll be kicked out back to the broken-down temple. Oh, said Shen Qiao. He stared blankly at the ceiling beams for a long time, his eyes vacant. Chen Gong had no idea what he was looking at. Seeing Shen Qiao act like none of this was his problem, Chen Gong got angry. He couldn't help but shove his shoulder again. Say something, don't just stare. We're at an inn now. I was afraid that they'd come back looking for revenge, so I moved you out of the temple and even hired you a doctor. The doctor said something about your stagnant qi or whatever. Some kind of cold qi inside you. Anyway, it's something bad, and he prescribed you a lot of medicine, so we've used up all the money. Shen Qiao came back to himself. Tell him not to prescribe any medicine. Even if I take it, it's useless. I know my body best. This isn't something that can be rushed. What's the use of saying that now? I've already bought the medicine. You're telling me to try and return it? Oh, said Shen Qiao. In that case, never mind. Chen Gong half squatted so that their eyes were level. Hey, since you're so skilled, why don't we work as street performers? Or maybe we should just join the Liu He Guild? They've got a branch in this country. With your martial prowess, you can definitely land a good position. And then you can bring me in. What is the Liu He Guild? Asked Shen Qiao. In the face of his blank and guileless expression, Chen Gong was forced to explain, although impatiently. It's a guild that does business by both land and sea. On land, they mainly perform escort missions. I've also heard that they do some spy work for hire or something like that. In any case, anyway, it's just a really big guild. I only found out about it when I heard someone mention it. So how about it? Let's join the Liu He Guild. If we can find a good job, then we won't have to tell fortunes all day. And I won't have to haul rice either. By the end of this speech, he was brimming with excitement. Shen Qiao shook his head. I've told you before that there are many things I don't remember. Those moves last night only came to me in a flash of inspiration. Memory aside, what kind of job could I get there with my poor eyesight? It's better if I just keep on earning money here, peacefully. Those words were like a basin of cold water thrown over Chen Gong's head, and they doused even his smile. Shen Qiao couldn't see it, but he could feel the youth's dejection. You're still young. You shouldn't fantasize about being an overnight success. We're not people of the Jianghu. Wouldn't we be out of our depths if we joined a Jianghu guild all of a sudden when we don't know any of the rules? Chen Gong was extremely unhappy. I don't know what out of our depth means. I just know that the money I earn from hauling rice every day isn't even enough for us to rent a room at an inn. I know that medicine and food cost money. You might be all noble or whatever, but does money fall out of the sky? It's not like I'm a thief or robber, so don't talk like I only stand around all day dreaming that money will land on my head. Hey, what's wrong? Don't scare me. All I did was complain about you a little. Shen Qiao clutched his head, waiting for the burst of pain to pass. Slowly he said, I won't join you or the Liu He Guild. I'm going to Suandu Mountain. Suandu Mountain? Chen Gong said curiously. What kind of place is that? He'd grown up in Funing country, lived there his whole life, and never gone to school, so his knowledge was limited. He'd only heard about the Liu He Guild because they had a branch in the country. He'd heard little of anything else. To him, the world of the Jianghu was a far distant thing. Shen Qiao shook his head without answering, then lapsed back into a daze. Hey, say something, you! Chen Gong snarled. I used my own money to get you treatment and medicine. You better pay me back. Technically, you've been overcharging him with those donkey sandwiches, but I'm gonna leave it there because he did make an agreement, a verbal agreement with you, but you still overcharged him. Just saying. For the next few days, I'll set up a fortune-telling stall as before. Soon, I'll be able to pay you back. Chen Gong could see that Shen Qiao was completely uninterested in joining the Liu He Guild and couldn't help but feel demoralized. If Shen Qiao didn't go, then who would give him a second glance when all he had to offer was the strength to haul rice? What kind of place is Xuandu Mountain? He asked. A mountain. Chen Gong let the non-answer hang. He thought Shen Qiao might irritate him to death. Bullshit, he said. Of course I know it's a mountain. I'm asking what you're gonna do there. I don't know either, said Shen Qiao. But someone told me that I came from there, so I want to go back and see it. Where is this mountain? Near the border of Qi, Zhao, and Chen. Chen Gong was shocked. That far away? Then how did you get from there to here? Helplessly, Shen Qiao said, Haven't I already said? I've forgotten many things and still can't remember. If I knew the answer, why wouldn't I talk about returning there to investigate? Chen Gong thought for a moment. How about this? I'll go with you and you won't need to pay me back either. All you gotta do is teach me a move or two, like what you did, so I can beat 6 or 7 guys into the ground. Then, when we reach Chen, I'll join the Liu He Guild and you'll head to your Suandu Mountain. How about that? Funing country is your home, said Shen Qiao. It's a peaceful place, nearly untouched by warfare, and it's very different from the outside world. Once I leave, I'll need to go straight west, and the closer it is to Qiao border, the more chaos there will be. I have no choice, but why would you undertake such a dangerous journey? My mother and father are dead, and my step-siblings have taken over my house. I'd rather forge my own path out there than stay in Funing country, hauling rice. Didn't you say I'm suited to joining the army? To join one, I'll need to go where wars are frequent and soldiers are in demand, right? I don't want to huddle like this my whole life, with even beggars bullying me and looking down on me. Shen Qiao was silent for a moment. Very well, then. He'd barely said anything when Chen Gong fell to his knees before his bed with a thump. Praise be to Shifu. Please accept this disciple's respects. Shen Qiao's mouth twitched. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Get up. I can't accept disciples and I won't. As for the moves I have now, I might not remember them completely. At most, I can only teach you what I recall, and I can't say how effective that will be. You don't need to take me as your master. When he heard this, Chen Gong sprang up. Brightly, he said, All right, but you're older than me, so from now on, I'll call you Xiang Shang. If anyone picks on me again, you've got to help me out. Shen Qiao smiled but didn't reply. Instead, he drifted off once more. Chen Gong watched him in silence for a few moments. When he saw that Shen Qiao wasn't going to rouse himself, all he could do was turn around and leave. So, Xiang Shang means close to esteemed elder brother, a highly respectful way to address a close older man. So, like, one of the references to that is like how Lan Wangji calls Lan Zixin Xiang Shang. Shen Qiao had been gravely injured by his fall from the cliff, with all of his bones shattered. He'd been in critical condition, but those injuries had nearly all mended during the 3 months he spent in the villa with Yu Shengyan. What had been fundamentally damaged were his internal organs, along with his martial arts. In that one turn of events, he'd almost lost his abilities entirely. Now all that was left were his fuzzy memories and a half-crippled body. Making a full recovery was easier said than done. If this had happened to someone else, it would be a severe, practically devastating blow. But in spite of that, Chen Gong was the angry one between the two of them. They didn't return to the temple, but instead negotiated with the innkeeper for a discount and rented the room for a month straight. All month, Shen Qiao told fortunes at Duke Jiang's temple, and Chen Gong hauled rice at the granary. At night, when he returned from work, Chen Gong learned martial arts from Shen Qiao. His foundations weren't bad, and he had some talent, so within a month he'd made decent progress. However, without internal breathing to support his development, in the end it was little better than a castle built on air. His skills would hold up well enough against hoodlums and thugs, but if he encountered a true practitioner, all his moves would be useless. After that month, Shen Qiao and Chen Gong left Funing country and set off towards the west. Shen Qiao hadn't seen Yu Shengyan since leaving the villa, nor anyone else from Huanyue Sect. Funing country was very close to the villa where he'd stayed, but every time he went to Duke Jiang's temple to set up his fortune-telling stall, all he saw and heard about were thoroughly ordinary people, along with the thoroughly lively market life. The Jianghu seemed incomparably distant, so distant that Shen Qiao sometimes felt that he had no need to go to Suandu Mountain after all, that living his entire life in Funing country might not be so bad. I could honestly see someone writing a fic about him just staying. But now and then a heaviness would settle in his chest. This, together with rainy day pains that prickled through his freshly mended bones, the faint glimpses of past events that flashed through his mind, and the true qi that flitted infrequently through his limbs and entire body, were all reminders of one thing. The Shen Qiao he was now was not a whole Shen Qiao. To the west of Funing country lay Huai Province. It was a large province and was heavily defended due to its proximity to Shou. The provincial governor there was usually appointed by the emperor himself, and from time to time the imperial censors would patrol, frequently putting the area under martial law. Although the world had been divided for a long time, the various countries put no prohibitions on trade between nations. That is, with the exception of Huai Province's provincial governor, Shen Buyi, who had a particular way of doing things. The moment he took office, he ordered the closure of border trade between Qi and Shou. Any merchant found engaging in trade would be severely punished. Shen Buyi told the emperor that spies from Shou could easily slip into the trading markets, then leak the details of their border defenses to the enemy. He advised that Qi close the rest of its border trade as well, and though Qi's Emperor Gao Wei didn't adopt this particular suggestion of Shen Buyi's, he still had high praise for his loyalty and issued a decree of commendation. Shen Buyi was not only excessive when it came to governance, he was also heavy-handed in his flattery of Qi's officials and nobles alike. The emperor's trusted subjects would often put in a good word for him, and it was only on their good graces that he soared from a small-time country lieutenant to a provincial governor. After considering how much they would spend if they entered the city, She Qiao and Chen Gong decided to stay overnight at a temple outside of it instead. The next day, they'd head directly into the city for supplies. That way, they could be out of the city and on their way by the afternoon. The temple was called Chuyun Temple. They'd heard it was in use by worshippers, but in truth, it didn't look much better than the dilapidated temple they'd lived in Funing country. Inside Chuyun Temple were 3 monks, 1 old abbot, 2 young monks that he had adopted. It was a simple place with only 2 private rooms for sleeping in, 1 for the old abbot and 1 for the 2 young monks. Other than that, it was all communal cots. Chen Gong was used to living a hard life. Back in that dilapidated temple in Funing country, forget about a cot, he hadn't even had a blanket. To him, these were very cushy accommodations. Meanwhile, She Qiao was easy to please, the type to adapt to any circumstances. He certainly wasn't going to raise any objections either. When they entered the sleeping area, they realized that another group of 4 young men had arrived before them. They'd even brought 2 large storage chests into the room. Chen Gong was always wary of other people, so he could be hostile and not easily cozy up to strangers. She Qiao's poor eyesight meant that even though he wanted to greet them, he couldn't properly see what they looked like. The 4 people who made up the other party made no move to approach them either, just subtly looked Chen Gong and She Qiao up and down. When they saw there was no Qi strengthening their steps and that their clothes were shabby, the group paid them no further attention. Soon enough, the 2 young monks came in carrying their bedding. The sleeping quarters were already cramped. 2 extra people made them even more crowded. Chen Gong was bubbling over with dissatisfaction. He couldn't help but mutter, 6 people's already plenty, and now there's 2 more? One young monk heard and whispered to him, "Benefactor, there's a young lady traveling with these benefactors over there, and it's inconvenient for her to share a room with us. Therefore, our humble selves lent our room to her. Help others, and others will help you." Since it was a lady, she needed a room to herself. Chen Gong was still unhappy, but there wasn't much he could say. Seeing how the party of 4 were all carrying swords drained his urge to speak even more. But then he happened to see something out of the corner of his eye and grew excited. While everyone was eating, he took the opportunity to grab She Qiao and whisper, "Did you see? Those people are from the Liu He Guild. The symbol of the Liu He Guild is on their clothes and chests, exactly the same one as in Funing country." She Qiao smiled a little. "How can I see with my poor eyesight?" Chen Gong's excitement didn't dim in the slightest. Say, if I find a chance to talk to them and they take a liking to me, do you think they'll agree to let me join the Liu He Guild?" She Qiao knew that Chen Gong's heart was still set on the Liu He Guild. Even after a long journey, he'd never changed his mind. Slowly, She Qiao said, "I don't think that's a good idea." Okay. I'm going to mark 120 for chapter 8. Or chapter 9. Alright. Chapter 9. Terror at Midnight. Why not? Said Chengong. I saw how you tried to approach them just now, said She Qiao, and how they paid you no heed. Furthermore, they didn't say a word when both of us were there, so it seems that they are either very wary or unwilling to speak with us. Good night, Truffle. I'll leave a little note that you, or if you remember, you stopped at chapter 9. That's all good. But I will remember to put those in the description, so then they'll show up on the video. But have a good night, Truffle. Have a great weekend, actually. Enjoy your trip. Yes. Okay. So, and how they paid you no heed. Furthermore, they didn't say a word when both of us were there, so it seems they are either very wary or unwilling to speak with us. Either way, I'm afraid your wish will be in vain. Chengong was upset, but he had to admit that She Qiao was right. I know that those types would look down on someone from the bottom rung like me. One day I'm going to be the one stepping on everyone's heads, and then they'll have to kowtow to me. She Qiao knew that his hang-ups came from his experiences growing up and could never be resolved with just a couple of words, so he held his tongue on more advice. The food at Chunyun Temple was as simple as the temple itself. A bowl of white congee and a few side dishes. The side dishes had been pickled right there at the temple. The taste was decent enough. She Qiao ate slowly, but Chengong went fast. He'd failed to get in good with the Liu He Guild, so he was in a bad mood. Once he'd hastily shoved down a few bites, he returned to the sleeping area. Not long after he'd left, two of the other party staying at the temple entered to eat. Though She Qiao could see light by now, he was still unable to discern objects clearly, and his eyes would start to hurt when he used them for too long. Most of the time, he simply kept them closed and didn't use them unless he had to. At that moment, he saw 4 vague figures approaching and then sitting down at another long table. 2 of them were wearing dresses. They seemed to be women. She Qiao was well aware of the situation. He knew the Liu He Guild must be escorting something important on this trip, so all 4 men didn't eat together at once but left 2 behind with their cargo to keep watch. And the 2 women must be the female guests who'd borrowed the young monk's rooms. She Qiao minded his own business. He fumbled through his porridge, and once he was done, he reached over to grab the bamboo cane at his side. The bamboo cane fell and hit the ground with a sharp crack. She Qiao frowned slightly. His hand hadn't even reached the cane, and it couldn't have fallen for no reason. I touched it accidentally, came a woman's soft voice. Please forgive me, sir. She bent down to pick up the bamboo cane and handed it to She Qiao. No matter, She Qiao took it and nodded in her direction, then prepared to stand up and leave. But the woman continued. Our meeting was fated. May I have this gentleman's name? My last name is Shen, said She Qiao. Is Shen Xiansheng headed into the city? A polite address for men, sometimes seen as equivalent to Mr. in English. Xiansheng. Yeah. That is correct. There are many inns and relay stations there, so why did you choose this ramshackle little temple instead of finding a place to stay inside the city? She was obviously trying to pry into She Qiao's business. If he were someone else, he'd likely counter with, "You're staying here too, aren't you? What gives you the right to stick your nose in?" But She Qiao was mild-tempered, and he gave a proper answer. "We don't have enough money," he said. "Staying inside the city would be even more expensive, so we're waiting until tomorrow morning to enter. That way, we won't need to stay there overnight." His voice was pleasant, and he had an aura that drew people in. It was difficult to ignore, despite his rough clothes, and it was even more difficult to see him as the same kind of person as Chen Gong. That the two of them hung out together, despite their complete incompatibility, and that they were even traveling companions, inevitably drew suspicion. People came up to them to try and probe for the full story, especially since they were ordinary people wandering around with no martial abilities whatsoever. His answer was reasonable, and she couldn't spot any flaws, so she warmly replied, "I was too forward. Please forgive me. My last name is Yun. I'm called Yun Fuyi." She Qiao nodded. "Enjoy your meal, Yun Niangzi. This humble Shen will take his leave now." "Take care, sir." She Qiao slowly felt his way to the door using his bamboo cane. Yun Fuyi frowned a little as she watched his retreating back, but said nothing. Hu Yu, who was sitting at her side, said, "Deputy Leader, I fear that those two showing up here isn't a coincidence. That kid is no big deal, but the Shen guy, he may look like a blind man, but why would a blind man be wandering around? He might be here for our cargo." His twin brother, Hu Yan, rolled his eyes at him. "If you've noticed, do you think the deputy leader hasn't?" "I was testing him just now," said Yan Fuyi. "He has no internal energy and didn't recognize my name. It doesn't seem like he's pretending either. Regardless, we should be careful tonight. I'd thought that word would travel too freely within the crowded city, so it would be safer to stay outside. But now it seems such precautions were ineffective." See, that's the thing. If you're trying to lose someone, you stay in a crowded place, or you go to a crowded place, not a secluded area, because it's easier to lose someone in a crowd. It's also safer, but anyway. What kind of treasure is in our cargo?" asked Hu Yu. "We've met 2 sets of robbers already along our journey, each stronger than the last, and there's still a long road south between here and Jiankang. What I'm afraid of is a mishap with the cargo. If that happens, losing the goods themselves may be a small matter, but staining the Liu He Guild's reputation is a large one." Though their company was small in number, they were decidedly the elite of the Liu He Guild. Considering that they were accompanied by Yun Fuyi, the deputy leader herself, their strength as a group was undeniable. But even so, they dared not take things lightly. Yun Fuyi shook her head. "The guild leader gave us a strict order to escort this to Jiankang no matter what. He sent a message earlier saying that he would rush to Luo Providence and meet us there. Then we'll continue south together." When they heard that their leader wasn't far behind, Hu Yan and Hu Yu's spirits rose, and they started up again guessing exactly what was in those 2 chests that could warrant such eager attention from the guild. The Liu He Guild's reach stretched far, both north and south of the Yangtze River. They transported cargo here and there countless times over the years, and had even escorted treasures from the imperial palace, but they'd never seen the higher-ups take anything this seriously before. The deputy leader personally escorting something and the guild leader personally coming to pick it up, That was an unprecedented, earth-shattering first. Hu Yan and Hu Yu hailed from the Longmen sect, and they belonged to a small number of top martial artists within the Jianghu. But they were still young, after all. Facing two sets of robbers targeting their goods one after the other hadn't dampened their fighting spirits in the least. In fact, it made them all the more eager to push forward. Unlike them, Yuan Fuyi was privately worried. In any case, she'd said, we should keep on our guard until we meet up with the guild leader. Night. Compared to the city, the outskirts were quieter. So quiet, in fact, that it made one's flesh crawl a little. There was little entertainment to be had in the small temple at night, so everyone went to bed early. Other than Hu Yan and Hu Yu, She Qiao and Chen Gong also shared their communal cots with two of the Liu He Guild Hall's master, and their martial abilities exceeded even the Hu brothers. Such a formidable battle formation appearing in the Jianghu was very noteworthy. That sentence was fighting me. Chen Gong understood little about the Jianghu, but even he could tell that these people were all very powerful. He tried every means and made every effort to try and get close to them and join the Liu He Guild, but his hot fervor ran up against a frigid wall. They simply ignored him. They even extended more civility to She Qiao than they did Chen Gong. Oh no! After several attempts, Chen Gong finally grew discouraged. At times he was frustrated and indignant. At other times he felt that he hadn't shown enough sincerity. That tomorrow he should go and tell them that he only wanted to enter Liu He Guild to clean or do odd jobs, and then maybe they'd accept him at last. Of course, his racing thoughts kept him asleep. After tossing and turning a few times, all of a sudden, Chen Gong noticed several members of the Liu He Guild moving about. Their movements were quick and light. They threw on their clothes and shoes, then vanished in the span of a blink. Curious, Chen Gong wanted to get up too and take a look, but then a hand reached out from over beside him and held him down. Chen Gong jolted in surprise before he realized it was She Qiao. Don't go out. Stay here, said She Qiao quietly. I'll just crack the door open and take a look, said Chen Gong. I'm not going to do anything. Just as he spoke, yelling and the sound of fighting came from outside. Chen Gong was immediately seized by excitement and apprehension. He felt like he'd come another step closer to the Jianghu of his fantasies. But just as he reached to open the door, he felt his fingers go numb, and the entire set of doors blew wide open with a powerful gust that swirled in from outside, its winds mighty like a hurricane. Unable to dodge in time, Chen Gong cried out in pain as he stumbled backwards. His back slammed into the edge of the bed, instantly turning his cry into a scream. Ow. That would hurt. And that wasn't the end of it, because in the next moment, someone clamped their hand around his throat. The person choking him pressed gently upward with his arm, and Chen Gong involuntarily flew with the motion. The scene before him changed from within the room to outside of it. Chen Gong's eyes were wide with fear, but he was completely unable to call out. Just when he'd managed to find his footing, he heard someone laugh and say, San Lang, are you stupid? One glance will tell you this kid doesn't know martial arts. There's no way he's a member of the Liu He Guild. What did you capture him for? What? He's not with the Liu He Guild? Damn it, no wonder he was such easy pickings. I've just captured some trash. The man holding him broke into loud curses, and his grip tightened. The pain was so immense, Chen Gong's eyes watered. I'm done for. I'm going to be killed. Okay, so just quickly, the San Lang literally means third son. So, With that realization, Chen Gong was filled with 10,000 regrets that he hadn't listened to She Qiao, that he hadn't just hidden quietly inside the room, but had tried to come out and watch the commotion instead. It's what you get for sticking your nose in it, dude. The Jianghu was still far out of his reach, but matters of life and death were close at hand. Literally. Chen Gong felt a sharp burst of pain in his neck, a sign that his throat was about to be crushed. But a moment later, the man who'd been about to kill him gave a yelp of surprise, snatched back his hand, and moved away. Freed from the pressure, Chen Gong's entire body went limp, and he fell to his knees, coughing incessantly. I was wondering if I heard that right. Interesting. So Shai Lian is calling Hua Chang third brother when he calls him San Lang. This one is one word. So I don't know. Hang on. I'm going to look that up because I'm curious. Okay, so it means third son or something, and it's just the way Shai Lian calls him. But also, fun fact, but from what I know, San Lang is the equivalent of San Niang, which is what Jiang Figmian calls Yuzuan. So, in a sense, San Lang can be a way to call one's husband, but I'm pretty sure that's not what Shai Lian intended. Again, but there's a certain level of default affection when the term is used, which now would make more sense for Hua Lian. Yeah. He said he was the third son in his family. Yeah. So it does mean third son. Good catching that point. Yeah. Nice. It means third son, but it's sometimes used by wives to address their husbands as a nickname. I know that Liang Gong is sometimes used. Lang Gong is sometimes used like for husband as well. Or Liang Zi. But yes. But a moment later, the man who'd been about to kill him gave a yelp of surprise, snatched back his hand, and moved away. Freed from the pressure, Chen Gong's entire body went limp, and he fell to his knees, coughing incessantly. Yes, he definitely knew what he was doing when he asked Shai Lian to call him that. Yeah. When Mu Rongxun had been about to kill Chen Gong, he'd been aware that someone else was in the room, but he hadn't taken the two of them seriously at all. They were small fry. He definitely didn't expect the other man would have the gall to launch a sneak attack just as he was about to do away with the kid. I think it has something to do with the characters or something. I don't know Mandarin, but that's what a friend of mine said. Okay. Might be something to look up later. He definitely didn't expect the other man would have the gall to launch a sneak attack just as he was about to do away with the kid. The bamboo cane came at him light as a feather without even a wisp of internal energy behind it, so Mu Rongxun thought he could easily grab it. But when his hand touched its edge, it slipped bizarrely to the side and thrust towards a key acupoint on his back. Mu Rongxun had been forced to release Chen Gong and dodge to the side. "Who are you?" He narrowed his eyes at the other man. "We are not members of the Liu He Guild, nor are we people of the Jianghu. We just happen to be staying here for the night and have nothing to do with your feud. So please, show us some mercy and let us go, said Shen Qiao. There wasn't enough light for him to see Murong Xun. He could only judge his general location and clasp his hands beseechingly in that direction. But Murong Xun saw through it at once. You're blind. I mean, yeah, but... Within the span of a night, the tiny Chu Yun temple became the center of a maelstrom. Although Yun Fuyi had long anticipated a fight, tonight's situation far outstripped her expectations. As her sleeves rolled up, she sent out a palm strike while floating backwards. Her pose was beautiful and elegant, brimming with mortal grace. To a bystander, she seemed to be drifting in dance. It was unfathomable just how much power was contained within her palm. One of her opponent's sleeves furled, then flicked, easily dispelling Yu Fuyi's attack. But Yu Fuyi spotted two daggers thin as willow leaves sliding out from those sleeves. Their blades flashed, then quickly vanished, but the crushing wind behind her palm dropped away completely. This was a dire opponent, Yan Fuyi realized. Yu Fuyi. Yu Fuyi, from the clouds drift spring rain. On clothes they fall, yet leave no stain. As expected of Liu He's guild's second in command. Outsiders all say that Yu Fuyi is a woman, so she must be merely a figurehead. Clearly, such naysayers haven't had the opportunity to appreciate Deputy Leader Yun's capabilities. A silent blast of air accompanied these words, gusting towards Yu Fuyi. Her expression shifted slightly. No longer did it show the placid calm with which she had fought before. She thrust out with a flurry of palm strikes, their shape blooming in the air like a lotus flower, and her true chi rammed forward, firing forward in an even wall. Only when the two blasts collided did Yun Fuyi realize how unpredictable her opponent's true chi was. Sharp as a needle, there was no opening it couldn't slip through. It pierced precisely into even the slight crack, and when her palm brushed it, a billowing coldness penetrated her flesh and blood, stabbing straight through to her marrow. She had no time to withdraw. Her opponent gave her no time to react. Before the first burst subsided, a second one began, and like the rising spring tide of a river, it flooded into her, wave upon wave. She'd lost this invisible round, so Yu Fuyi thought better of taking the attack head-on and retreated, even though it meant giving up ground. By the time she landed, a dull pain had already throbbed through her chest, the salty sweet taste of blood in the back of her throat. She didn't spit it out, but swallowed it down, acting as if nothing had happened. "Who is this distinguished master?" she asked. Her opponent saw Yu Fuyi's lack of reaction and made an incredulous noise. Mild surprise and respect came over his face. In all of Qi, there's very few who can withstand my palm strike. You are truly quite capable. Who is this distinguished master? Yun Fuyi asked again. The man arrogantly clasped his hands behind his back and sneered. You are in Qi now, and you wish to transport Qi's items across the border? Is the court not allowed to take an interest? Concerning today's incident, if the Liu He Guild is willing to leave the items behind, we won't trouble you anymore and will guarantee you safe passage out of Qi. At the mention of Qi's imperial court, Yun Fuyi's heart pounded. She quickly put two and two together. You're a member of the Qi's dynasty? You're Murong Qin? The Murong clan had been displaced by the collapse of the Yan dynasty, and all through the next several dynasties, they'd wandered here and there. The current patriarch of the Murong family, Murong Qin, always boasted of being a descendant of the Murong royal family, yet he became a lackey in the country of Qi, serving its emperor Gao Wei. It It was only due to his reputation as Qi's #1 martial artist that people tried to please him with flattery and blatant displays of admiration. Under normal circumstances, Yu Fuyi would have no qualms about fighting him. But he was obviously after the cargo she was escorting and utterly dead set on having them. That meant were Liu Qingya and Shengguan Xingchen. Her expression twisted a touch as she asked after the two hallmasters who'd been traveling with her. Hu Yu and Hu Yan were taken aback. Hallmasters Liu and Shengguan were both back in the room, guarding the cargo. Could they be? Harshly, Yu Fuyi said, I don't think the Murong Patriarch, Qi's #1 martial artist, would need to bring his men along for an ambush. Wouldn't it be laughable if word got out? Murong Qin smiled mockingly. Deputy Leader Yun herself has stepped in personally. How could I dare be so arrogant as to come alone? In any case, we're not the only ones here tonight. Will you not show yourselves, you rats in the shadows? Uh-oh, things are heating up. All right. We shall start this chapter. Where did my pen go? Let's start chapter 10 at 146. And we'll do 147. Okay. Chapter 10. Yan Wushi. After Murong Qing's words, it was quiet all around. No one answered him. Yu Fuyi frowned, recalling that the temple's abbot and the two young monks had yet to appear. She wondered if they'd fainted from fear or if something else had happened to them. Instead, Murong Shun and Chuoba Liangxi appeared. They'd been sent out to investigate, and in their grasp now were She Qiao and Chen Gong, as well as the two hallmasters from the Liu He Guild. Patriarch, these chests just have a bunch of junk in them. What we wanted wasn't there, Chuoba Liangxi said while throwing Chen Gong to the ground roughly. Chen Gong had kept on moaning and wailing in pain on the way there. Irritated, his captor had pressed the boy's acupoint to mute him. At the moment, Chen Gong couldn't make a single noise, but his face was twisted in anguish. She Qiao had been treated a little better, perhaps because the moves he'd used left Murong Shun vaguely unnerved. He was even making sure to firmly restrain She Qiao's shoulders. Liao Qingya and Shengguan Xingchen, the two Liu He Guild hallmasters who were usually so formidable, were currently immobilized, their major acupoints all sealed. They were in a miserable state, faces crumpled in defeat, but they grit their teeth and refused to make a single sound. Murong Qin cast a look their way. Deputy Leader Yun, if you still care about the sorry lives of these underlings, then hand over the items. Yun Fuyi sighed. Very well. Since the Murong Patriarch only wants the goods we're transporting on our journey, the two chests are in the quarters where Hallmaster Liu was staying. Send someone there to get them. Clearly, since my skills are inferior to yours, I can't object. Murong Qin sneered. Those two chests of yours are just a diversion. Do you still take us for fools? The actual item is probably on your person and has been all this while, no? At this, even the Liu He Guild members looked at Yun Fuyi in surprise. Her expression darkened. Where did the Murong Patriarch hear such gossip? And you believe it, too? Those chests were entrusted to us. We were tasked with delivering them back to southern Chen. The owner of the items was clear on this. In fact, he was even your colleague, Shu Rong, the late junior preceptor of the Crown Prince. After he passed away from illness, his wives and children tasked the Liu He Guild with transporting his belongings back to Junior Preceptor Shu's hometown. He and our guild leader were old friends, so I escorted this order personally. That is all. Those 2 chests are filled with Shu Rong's old personal possessions, and most of them are books, said Murong Qin. They could have disposed of 2 chests of books on the spot. Why do they need to be transported such a distance from Qi to the south? You're asking me, said Yuan Fuyi. Who can I ask? You lot have encountered schemers and robbers since you set out on this journey. Do you really think they came for 2 chests of Shu Rong's old books? Not Qi Rong. That's a different story. Perhaps there are some who thought that Junior Preceptor Shu had amassed countless fortunes when alive, and that the chests were filled with treasures of gold and silver. They didn't know that Junior Preceptor Shu was an honest, uncorrupt official who left little behind. Coldly, Murong Chen said, among Shu Rong's belongings, there's a copy of Kang Hai Gleanings. I asked Deputy Leader Yun to hand it over. All the books are within those 2 chests. Whatever's there is there, and whatever isn't is not. They're already yours to do what you will with. What else can I hand over? Murong Qin looked at Murong Shun and his party. This nephew has already searched everything, Murong Shun told him. There's no book called Kang Hai Gleanings. From the middle of the air came a giggle. The Murong Patriarch is so patient. If you keep beating around the bush like that, I fear that Deputy Leader Yun will simply play dumb to the very end. You might as well say it directly. Kang Hai Gleanings is only a cover. Inside it is the Shu Yang Strategies volume of diluted thought. Demand that she hand over the Zhu Yang strategy scroll. Someone else was hiding nearby? Shock gripped the 2 brothers, Hu Yan and Hu Yu. They quickly raised their heads and looked around, but only saw a thick sea of branches, not even the hint of a human silhouette among them. But in the next moment, they spotted another figure standing behind one of the pillars on the colonnade. For a while now, Chen Gong had been listening to their conversation attentively, despite the pain that he was in. But when he realized he couldn't understand a single sentence, his dream of joining the Liu He Guild fizzled out completely. He'd taken a real beating and was sweating from the agony. Only when the pain died down a bit did he have the strength to lift his head and look at the newcomer. And the moment he did, he jolted in shock. They were standing beneath the moonlight. Their head was bare and smooth, and their body draped in robes. It was obviously one of Chuyun Temple's young monks. Because there'd been female guests at the temple, the 2 young monks had lent out their room to Yu Fuyi and moved to the communal cots with Chen Gong and the others. The room had been pitch dark when Chen Gong rose from his bed to peek at the commotion, so all he knew was that the Liu He Guild's people were gone. He hadn't looked carefully to check if the 2 young monks were still there. But listening to it now, this young monk's voice was completely different from before. It was a delicate female voice. Chen Gong's head felt completely muddled, like it was filled with rice paste. He couldn't figure out exactly what was going on here. But the others weren't focused on whether someone had switched places with the monk or if the monk had been an imposter from the beginning. No, their expressions all changed dramatically the moment she said the word Zhu Yang strategy. And who is this distinguished master? Asked Yun Fuyi. Skulking around like you're ashamed to show yourself in the light? I meant to sneak in quietly, then sneak out with the item the same way, said the young monk. But Deputy Leader Yun didn't give me the chance, and the Murong Patriarch intervened in the middle of things. I had no choice but to show myself. Yun Fuyi frowned, sizing up the new arrival. She couldn't figure out where she'd come from, but the monk continued, smiling. Deputy Leader Yun thinks herself cautious and discreet, yet she completely failed to notice that from the moment she left the capital, many eyes were on her. The first 2 batches were just amateurs, not worth mentioning. But tonight, we have a gathering of the outstanding. Other than our Huanyue Sect and the Murong Patriarch, there are still other experts who haven't revealed themselves, are there not? It's a fine night, and we've been given this rare chance to convene. Why don't we call the rest out so we can all deepen our friendships and have a fanciful discussion about what to do with this Zhuyang strategy scroll? Shall the strongest take all, or shall we rip it into pieces and walk away with one each? Her tone was wry and flirtatious, but no one at the temple was laughing. Yun Fuyi's heart sank. She could barely handle Murong Qin, and how the treacherous Huanyue Sect was in the mix. The situation had become terribly perilous. Not to mention what the other woman had implied, that there were still others hiding in the shadows waiting to reveal themselves. Deputy Leader Yun, you have seen for yourself how experts gathered like storm clouds at Huanyue Temple. Murong Qin said sharply, you cannot handle them all by yourself. If you are willing to hand over the Zhuyang strategy, then in the name of the court, I will let you go, and of course will guarantee your safe exit across the border. The Murong Patriarch is from the court, yes, but I believe we are more qualified to say such words, given Huanyue Sect's influence within Qi. The young monk spoke while smiling brightly. She walked out from behind the pillar, her face simple and plain. She barely moved, but off to the side, Murong Shun suddenly uttered a gasp and reeled back sharply, quickly letting go of She Qiao. With only the slightest of movements, Murong Qin flashed in front of Murong Shun, shielding him. 2 shimmering lights fired from his sleeves as he lunged straight towards the young monk. Changong stared numbly as the 2 fighters' robes and sleeves fluttered beneath the moonlight, light and shadow overlapping, transforming their life and death clash into a vision of peach blossoms unfurling in bloom. Abruptly, he realized just how ridiculous it was that he'd resented the Liu He Guild for refusing him, and just how naive and ignorant was his understanding of the thing called the Jianghu. He couldn't help but look over at She Qiao. He was still holding the bamboo cane in hand, standing still and quiet, and half hidden within the shadows, nearly invisible. At first glance, the man he knew as She Qiao appeared utterly unremarkable. And yet, it seemed some grave mystery lay concealed within him. It made him unreadable and perplexing. As Murong Qin and the young monk began to exchange blows, Yun Fuyi glanced around the assembled crowd, and her thoughts took a slight turn. Her foot moved along with them. Her footwork was swift and deft. That one step took her as far as an ordinary person's 10. Her gait was serene and elegant, and like a mere caress on clothes, she left no trace. However, just as she'd taken that step, a pressure came from behind, as heavy as a mountain, and slammed right into her. In the middle of their fight, Murong Qin and the young monk had tacitly attacked her as one. The young monk made sure to mock her with a tinkling laugh. How dishonest of you, Deputy Leader Yun. Are you trying to walk away and abandon your subordinates? Is this the way the leader of a guild should behave? If word gets out, who'd be willing to follow your orders? But Yun Fuyi knew that while the item was still with her, she needed not worry about Liu Qingya and the others. Murong Qin clearly thought them beneath him, so for the time being they wouldn't be in any danger. Hence, she decided to make a hasty exit by herself. Even though the young monk was trying to provoke her, she spoke not a word. Furifuricchin alone required all her attention, and with this, Huanyue Sect demoness was there too. The pressure she was under had doubled. The three of them stood at the center of a circle, and 3 bursts of true qi coiled in a violent storm. Fearful of being hit by crossfire, the others were forced to withdraw in the face of such a powerful display. But Liu Qingya and Sheng Guan Xing Chen weren't so lucky. They'd been immobilized, and in their misfortune they were both struck by blasts of true qi, which left them hacking large mouthfuls of blood. Hu Yan and Hu Ya paled in horror and leapt forward to pull the other 2 to safety, but they found there was no way they could go near that 3-man battle ring. On the surface, it looked like the young monk and Furifuricchin had joined forces, but in truth they were wary of each other, on guard against backstabbing and cautious with their attacks. Yuan Fuyi had been losing her 2-on-1 fight, but her opponents' distrust of each other gave her space to eke out a small, precarious balance, and now, with great difficulty, she stood her ground. But this unsteady equilibrium was soon shattered. Inexplicably, Furifuricchin changed his mind. The flash of his dagger swept past Yu Fuyi's face, changing direction, and targeted the young monk instead. It carried a cold, cutting wind, as harsh as ice and frost. The young monk was busy sealing off Yu Fuyi's escape route. When she saw the dagger heading for her, she was forced to dodge. Yet those blades followed like her shadows, unrelenting. When they'd been attacking a common target, their difference in strength wasn't apparent. But in truth, Furifuricchin surpassed the young monk's ability, and now she was in a tight spot. Behind her was a pillar, and above her was the ceiling. She had nowhere to retreat. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Chen Gong, and without a second thought, she reached to grab him and use him as a shield. The moment passed in the blink of an eye. To the unskilled or ignorant in martial arts, the movements would look like lights and shadows blooming and fading. They'd be unable to see any details at all. Chen Gong hadn't even noticed the little monk reaching towards him. His head had turned to watch Yuan Fuyi and Furifuricchin, but She Qiao had noticed. He lacked even a scrap of internal energy, recalled very little of his so-called martial arts, and would often forget all sorts of things. His health was poor. From time to time, he'd cough up blood, and on top of that, he was completely blind. But he couldn't convince himself to stand by and watch. So, he chose to save the boy. Chen Gong still didn't know what was happening when he was shoved hard to the ground. When the young monk saw that her human shield had been replaced by a bamboo cane, a sound of surprise escaped her. In the span of a breath, the blade arrived. The young monk had no choice but to release the bamboo cane and spread her palm, catching the dagger straight on. The blade pierced through her wall of true qi, stabbing right into her palm. If she hadn't gripped it with all her strength, the blade's momentum would have carried it even further. Ow! Instantly, her palm became a mess of flesh and blood. If that bamboo cane hadn't ruined everything, she would have caught herself a sucker and would never have been injured. Furious, murderous intent bloomed on her face. Ignoring Yu Fuyi and Furifuricchin, she curved her fingers into claws and slashed at She Qiao. Furifuricchin had given up on Yuan Fuyi and turned on the young monk. He knew Yuan Fuyi wasn't likely to escape tonight, regardless of who it was she faced. And indeed, as he'd expected, such an intuition came. Such an intrusion came. A jade chime rang in the darkness, distant yet clear. When others heard it, they simply heard a bell, the sound almost cleansing. But to Yun Fu Yi's ears, it was like 100 needles piercing her flesh and 1,000 swords stabbing at her heart. She was in agony. Even the circulation of her true qi slowed and turned stagnant. And who was this? Panic-stricken, Yun Fu Yi dropped everything and scrambled to escape, only to find she couldn't move an inch, as if held in place by an invisible net. She knew her abilities didn't rank in the world's top 10, but she'd never thought she'd find herself so helpless. Only right there, at this moment, did she realize how ridiculously wrong she'd been. The attacker hadn't even revealed himself, and she was already utterly beaten. Was she really doomed to fail tonight, unable to protect the item in her care? At the thought of it, a thread of despair welled up in Yun Fu Yi's heart. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the young monk clawed at She Qiao, her fingers brutal, wild, and swift as lightning. She might have been weaker than Yun Fu Yi and Murong Qin in a one-on-one combat, but her skills were more than enough to deal with easy pickings like She Qiao. She Qiao had blocked her grab for Chen Gong with superb skill, but he'd also had the advantage of surprise. With the young monk attacking him seriously, She Qiao was completely powerless to counter. Qi potent enough to overturn rivers and oceans swept towards him in tidal waves of murderous intent. Though they were 6 paces apart, She Qiao was already gasping for breath as bursts of pain tore through his chest. His vision went completely black, and he couldn't even feel the ground beneath his feet. His entire body went soft and weak, except for that one spot in his chest. It burned like fire, a stifling agony that made him long to cough up another glob of blood, desperate for relief. Poor dude. The young monk couldn't care less about She Qiao. To her, this man had poked his nose in her business without even bothering to notice how outclassed he was. Truly, he deserved to die. Sure, he was good looking, but so what? The way she saw it, She Qiao was already dead. Yet, when her fingertips were a hair's breadth away from his neck, something else happened. And it didn't come from She Qiao. A hand appeared out of the darkness, stretching over to grab her by the wrist. It wasn't fast, and the movement itself was unremarkable, devoid of any flashy maneuvers. The hand was slender and pale, smooth and unmarred. She could see that it was a man's hand, and the hand of someone high status, who'd enjoyed many luxuries over the years. I wonder who it is. I guess you'll have to find out next week. Yes, I did end on a cliffhanger. I'm evil. But yes, that is where we're actually going to end it tonight. I think you can probably guess who it is, but you'll have to find out for sure next week. I enjoyed that chapter, though. We're getting a little more action. Right? They named the chapter after him, and he barely made an appearance. I don't know who you're talking about, Annika. It's going to be such a big surprise. I think you probably know who it is too, Esper Lady. Yeah. But I thought it would be fun to end it there. I think we're gonna keep to like this kind of length for the sessions, just because like it's more manageable, and I do work in the morning. And it's a decent length. It's like 2 hours of reading. But yeah. Meng Xi Shi writes action scenes so well. Yeah. She does. He does. I'm not sure if it's a man or woman. They do. There we go. Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I like the way they talk about chi and like actual cultivation in this. It's really interesting to me, especially in some of the later fights. I very much enjoy how it's described, because a lot of times in cultivation or wuxia novels, they just say like they did a palm strike, but this actually talks about like the internal aspects of it, and I think that's fascinating. But yes. All right. I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Both the people here and the people who watch this later. I hope it is nice weather and little traffic if you end up going out. But yes, have a good night, everybody. I will see you Tuesday, and we will find out for sure whose hand it is. Good night.